don't believe it's there. Should the places of worship step up their role of civic education?
I think that's why it is so important that the churches have been open, because we have people that we call members. And I want to tell you the truth. In the world, people believe in three people. People believe in pastors, people believe in doctors, and people believe in teachers. So it's a high time pastors
we seem to be having a technical hitch, but I've been speaking to Bishop Mike Brown of Metro Ministries all the way from Nakuru, of course, looking at churches. Also, churches have been touted as one of the hotspots if regulations are not followed to the letter. And of course, on Sunday, we did witness a lot of challenges on that. At least, thank you. I'm informed that we have Mike Brown on the line. My question was, how can we step up, or should churches and places of worship step up their role on civic education so that a lot of Kenyans know that the disease is real? As you said, some people don't believe it's real, and it's true, they don't believe. How can we step up that?
I think it's a high time, since that the church has been given an opportunity to start something. I think it's a high time. The church needs to be encouraged to start speaking to its member and to make this to be one of the subjects of the church, whereby we speak to our members and show them the reality. I personally, I was so ignorant until when my friend, one of my personal friends, died of the same, and it was proved the same. So this made me change my attitude and believe in everything and start teaching people. So I think pastors, imams, and all the religious people, wherever they are, is a high time. They need to start speaking to their people seriously and put this in their life and their mind to know that this is a disease. The truth is, it will come to pass. You know, some pastor thinks when we say this, we are not believers. It will come to pass, but while it is still there, we need to keep ourselves safe, teach our children, our people in the church, how to keep distance, how to obey whatever rules that have been laid out. And the truth is, these things will come to pass if we do the right thing.
And my final question, of course, a lot of churches and places of worship have embraced technology, and now they are using the online platform to send their message to their congregants. How has the situation been for the last couple of months before reopening, and especially for your ministries?
Yeah, okay, it was good that we were able to use the social media, television, which was so good. By the way, KBC was a big opportunity for us to reach many people. But at the same time, very few people in our community could be able to be reached. Unlike now that they can now come to church with money or without money. So it was a little bit tough. But still, even now, we are still using the social media, because we have people like, that's why I'm saying, like I do with the elderly people who cannot come to church. We encourage them to watch us on live stream. But the truth comes, when we come together, they get more encouragement, because people were not just destroyed by Corona. They were destroyed by loneliness and staying at home. There was depression. But now if they can come to church, they sing few songs, it uplifts their hearts. And I think that's why it's important for the church opening. Even if it's a few number, we can multiply our services. And also we can still continue to do the Zoom and to do all this kind of social media. But you know, in social media, you can be the only one singing. People don't sing along with you at home. When you worship, you are the only one worshiping. When you pray, you are the only one praying. But when we are in church, we are in a ecclesia, gathering together, where we are able now to share and to fulfill the will of God, where 2 or 3 have gathered, He is there.
Thank you so much. I have been speaking to Bishop Mike Brown of Metro Ministries in Nakuru, and as he has said, his last word was from Matthew chapter 18, verse 20, when 2 or 3 are gathered in his name, he shall be in the midst, from the holy book. But on the second hour, we will be looking at the welfare of health workers on the front line in the war against COVID. We've already, as a country, lost 3 medics, and as a world, we've lost over 600 who were on the front line against the COVID-19 pandemic. We are taking a short, quick break, but we will be right back with more. Don't go away. Welcome back to Channel 1 Newscheck, and in case you're joining us, welcome. We have been talking about the welfare and, of course, of clinical and health workers in the front line in the COVID-19 war. I will be joined by the national chairman of the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers. But yesterday, as I had alluded earlier, that was a very instrumental day when it comes to the war on COVID-19. We registered the highest number of recoveries at 642, but also we also registered the highest death in a single day, that is 12, taking the number to 250. Yesterday, the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union had a press conference. Of course, they told the government we need more health workers. We need more isolation facilities for our health workers who are leading the war on COVID-19. But let me not dilute anything. I'm joined by Peterson Wachira, who is the national chairman, Kenya Union of Clinical Nurses. But Wachira, you also wear other hats. Karibu sana.
Thanks a lot. I'm the national chairman for Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, not clinical nurses. Thank you.
Clinical officers. Apologies for that.
Yeah. So I'm also the joint chairman for Health Union Caucus. That is where the health unions come together to champion the rights for the joint health workforce. But I also coordinate the Ebola champions. That is the team of health workers that has a mix of all categories of health workers that had actually gone to West Africa in 2015 to fight Ebola outbreak. And we are also in the front line fighting this COVID-19 here in Kenya.
Welcome. First things first, yesterday we had Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union. They talked about a number of issues, one being addition of health workers, talking about those already isolated. They are creating a vacuum that others have to feel, which is leading to burnout when they work. Kindly your take on that.
I think I want to associate myself with their sentiments and agree that we think that the government is actually not doing enough when it comes to personnel, when it comes to health human resource, and especially in the context of COVID. I think we must remember that there has been a systemic neglect of the health sector. And I say this with the best intentions from so many years ago. And I want to thank the president, because I think this is the first president that we have seen even categorize in his 4 agendas, health as one of them, meaning that he's giving priority.
Yeah.
But now we have not been able to make a lot of progress when it comes to health human resource. And sometimes the steps that governments actually take, they appear similar to treating us with contempt. And why do I say this? We have been asking the government that we need additional 10,000 health workers so that we can be able to do home-based care for the vulnerable group. And then, instead of them employing the 10,000 that we are asking for, which is very possible because we have seen with teachers and the police, they are importing 20 doctors from Cuba. And now you are wondering if we are going to rely on our foreigners when actually we have health workers who are very competent in Kenya and who are unemployed.
Yes, and also on the same, 500 health workers in Kenya have tested positive for COVID-19, and of course we have 3 deaths on that from the health, actually from 1 doctor and 2 nurses. Should we increase the isolation center as we also think about scaling up hospitals' capacity of 300 beds?
Our increasing of isolation centers for the medics,
yes.
On one side will mean that we care, but on the other side will mean that we are resigning to fate, and we agree that our medics can now be infected, and then we just make more facilities.
Okay.
I agree with you that with a combination of isolation centers and home-based isolation for health workers, we actually need to treat them as the precious resource we have, because health workers are not actually the first line, they're actually the last line of defense, because if they fail, there is nowhere else we'll be able to run to. And so as a way of motivating them, number one, we must ensure that we are treating them well by ensuring we have a very good isolation and quarantine facilities for them. But even before that, you must motivate them by ensuring that their welfare is looked into. And by the way, we have not lost only 3. I understand some days ago we also lost a nurse from Nairobi, and also from COVID. And I think the devastating fact is that, number one, because this was a public worker, they never even enjoyed the COVID allowance that was given 4 months ago by the president. They were enjoying a health risk allowance of 3,000, which is very big compared to the risk that they were dealing with. And so, and also, we are only doing like 15 to 17% of the health workers we have been able to train on how to protect themselves in matters of using their protective equipment. And this is why, as unions, sometimes we get really frustrated, because you hear out there people talking about how they value these health workers. But then when it comes to where the rubber meets the road, ensuring their welfare is looked into, ensuring you train them so that they are confident, they feel secure while attending to Kenyans, then it is not happening at a pace that would actually make us feel that we are being appreciated as health workers. And I think I can sum it by saying, really we are doing dismally when it comes to the welfare of health workers, from employment, because one thing I can assure you, we are going to get more infections to health workers. We do not have adequate PPEs. We do not have adequate training for everybody at this point, because we focused on the isolation facilities and the level 4s and 5s and 6. Forgetting that actually when that person falls in, they do not start from those higher facilities. They start from the dispensary, from the health center. And I can assure you that two of the nurses actually who have passed on, they were from the lowest facilities that you'll have. And it's because of probably how it has been prioritized. And some of them, they have died without even having had that training on how to be able to protect themselves.
And still on their welfare, the government did introduce a special allowance for the health workers. And what is the position of compensation? Because from the last time, there wasn't an allowance for compensation in case of death.
What is supposed to happen, there is a WIBA Act, Work Injury Benefit Act. If you look at it, it will have a list of some occupational diseases and conditions and injuries that actually would warrant you to be compensated once you suffer from that, and probably if you die from that. If you look at it, COVID-19, because it's a new disease, it's not included, and so you cannot be compensated as per the WIBA Act, which is actually supposed to compensate my colleagues. And now what is happening is that there is supposed to be an amendment to WIBA Act. But we have been asking for this amendment for the past 4 months, and it is not actually coming through. And I think I'm also told that Parliament may be actually taking a recess because of COVID. I'm not sure about that. But these are some of the issues that they are supposed to have prioritized. Because the biggest problem that we might have is medics feeling that they are not well secured, and then not be willing to risk their lives, where they feel that if anything happens, then their families will not be looked after. So I think it's upon government to fast track this process to ensure that this waiver is amended very fast, so that they can be able to be compensated. But I can tell you as per now that there is no procedure in place to be able to compensate those medics who either suffer and probably get permanent injury, or those who are going to die from COVID-19.
There is a Judicial Service Commission, of course, which looks into issues and welfare of judiciary staff. We have Teacher Service Commission for the teachers. We have the PSC, the Parliamentary Service Commission for the welfare of legislators. There has been calls for an establishment of the Health Service Commission. What is your take on that? And how do you think it will help the medics?
So as Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, jointly with other unions, we presented to the Building Bridges Initiative, and we actually asked them to establish a Health Service Commission. It's not only ourselves, even the Forum for Women Leadership also did the same. I've also followed from different forums in different regions as they went round, and there were calls to establish a Health Service Commission. But we realized that in the final document that has not been released, we have credible information to the fact that some sources have ensured that the Health Service Commission is removed, and we have done press conferences to actually say that business will not be as usual if in the final document you are not going to have a Health Service Commission. And why are we saying this? The biggest problem we are having in this country today as pertains to the health sector is because we do not have parity of treatment for the human resources. And the only way we can have parity of treatment is by centralizing the management of human resources. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we need to reverse devolution.
Yes.
Because devolution of health is not synonymous with devolution of the health human resource. We can actually centralize the health human resource without reversing devolution by having a Health Service Commission that is composed of both national and a majority of county public service boards representation. And that is what we presented to the DPI, to just ensure that we can have one forum that manages the welfare of the health workers. I can tell you there is a clinic officer somewhere in this country who is qualified and licensed, who has been employed in the guise of internship, which is actually illegal because they already did an internship. They are being paid 15,000. There are others employed by hospitals paid 25,000. We saw a UHC that was advertised the other day. They are being paid 50,000. The ones on PNP, their starting salary would be around a job group H, which is about 80-something thousand. And that is illegal because the law is very clear. Employment Act Chapter 5, Section 5. Section 5.5 says that employees that perform work of equal value must be remunerated equally. So if I'm a clinic officer performing as per the job description, and I'm paid as per the job group H, and my colleague is being paid 15,000, that's an illegality that the government is committing. And even employing on contract has actually been prescribed in the Public Health Act of 2017, Section 45, gives requirements on how Kenyan citizens can be engaged by the government on contract. And the last requirement is that person must not be meeting the criteria to be employed under any other term. And the people being employed on contracts now, they are like 20, 24, 25 years. That's a person who qualifies to be on PNP. And basically, this is why we need a Health Service Commission that can be able to centralize the management, and we can be able to reason with, and where a president can be able to issue a directive to employees so that we meet the staffing norms and standards, as we did with the police, the 10,000 per year police, and now they are meeting the UN to population ratio. He has done the same with the teachers, but he cannot be able to do the same with the health workers because he cannot be able to direct the counties. But when we have one forum if the president can actually be able to issue such a directive. That is why we need a health service commission.
Indeed. And several health unions have talked about quote-unquote bad employment contract, as you were saying. What exactly do you mean, and who is to blame first, and what should be done now that health is a devolved function?
So the contracts, we are not actually calling them bad. We are saying they are irregular, they are illegal. And why they are illegal is because they are not following the laid down procedures, the laws that exist on the land. If the government expects us as citizens to abide by the law, then they must also lead by example. When you employ people under different terms performing the same job description, that is illegality as per Employment Act, which is a document of the state. It's not our own document. When you employ somebody on contract when they qualify to be employed under any other term, that is an illegality. That is Section 45 of the Public Service Commission Act. And so it's a pure illegality that you can be able to see. And I think in future as unions, then we'll have to go to court and seek a judicial review so that we can be able to compel the government to follow its own laws that it made. But when it is convenient for them, when they want to exploit the health workers, then they want to ignore the law and engage people on certain contracts that do not meet the threshold of the law.
Indeed. Let's now focus on PPEs. Of course, there have been calls for the government to subsidize and waive tax and VAT for testing kits and PPEs, and especially for private hospitals. What is your take on that?
Yeah, and I think we have also been able to voice the same, that right now, one of the most important resources that we can have for our health workers is their protection, and that means the personal protective equipment. It's a good thing that we are producing them in Kenya. But you can see, like the first 3 medics, they didn't come from public facilities. One was from Kitengela Medical, it's a private facility. The other one was from Nairobi South, it's a private facility, the doctor. So what does that tell you? Because of the cost implication involved, in most of the private facilities, most of the health workers are actually made to use the personnel protective equipment for a prolonged duration, even beyond the time that they are expected to be using them. And sometimes, because of the issue of cost, they may get some substandard, because we also have some substandard PPEs in place. And if the government can actually be able to come in, zero rate the PPEs so that they are available at an affordable cost, and then be able to go to even these factories and ensure that the quality is good. And also for the public facilities to also practice whatever they are supposed to be practicing, because I know of ENT specialists and anesthetists who are conducting their procedures using surgical masks, which is actually cannot protect you from such procedures because they are aerosol producing. And so I think the cause for them to be able to bring down the tax or even zero rate it, I think they are very valid, especially at this time, because we need adequate PPEs. We do not have adequate at the time, but we need to give motivation so that we can get adequate PPEs to check the infections in health workers, and then we as health workers will be able to secure you as Kenyans as we fight this outbreak.
Still on the kits, the testing kits, what we are seeing every day is what the government has been able to test. Should perhaps the government waive fees and taxes for testing kits so that even other private hospitals can be able to access them and be able to have a clear picture when we talk about mass testing, because 3,000, 2,000, 4,000 in a single day, I'm quite sure that can be scaled up if at all the testing kits are available, they have affordable price, and we can be able to get a good picture. Look at a picture like Baringo, 600,000 people, but only 169 have been tested. West Pokot, 600, 115 have been tested. Samburu, 310, but 114 only have been tested. Don't you think this would really scale up the testing so that we may have a clear picture of the COVID situation in the country?
It would actually do that, but there is also issue of capacity. The test that we are doing now, that is the PCR, is not a test that can be done in any other laboratory.
Okay.
And so there has to be a few that have been equipped well to be able to carry out this. It's also a very expensive procedure. And I agree that if it was actually to be waived and it was to be free, and it's actually supposed to be free, especially for anybody who feels they are suspects, is that the government will have to incur a lot of costs. And I know that this may be the balancing they are trying to play out, to see the balance of who can be able to pay, and then they can be able to subsidize, because I understand, like, for contacts of somebody who has been found to be positive, they are not paying, but if you walk in yourself, you'll be able to pay. I don't think we'll have the capacity anytime soon as Kenya to have mass screening or universal screening, because this test is a limited resource. We actually do not have both the funds, and even we cannot actually be able, because of the demand worldwide, I doubt we'll have a time when we can be able to purchase enough so that we are able to carry out mass testing. Because what we are doing now is a targeted testing, but I agree with you, by now we should not be doing less than 10,000. And I remember they had said there were machines that they were putting in place that would actually be able to test more than 10,000 a day. But that has not been able to happen. We really need to scale up, because we know, even when we talk about the medics or in the population, the numbers we have recorded is just but a sample. But if we were to have universal screening where everybody can get a test anywhere they are, then that would mean that we get the real picture. And the real picture is that we have more numbers, maybe even threefold of what we are talking about now, of those who have been infected. So I agree that the testing should be free. But then if you are to make it free and then universal, I doubt we have the capacity as a country to be able to do that. And that is why sometimes when you have a limited resource, and I think we have been able to voice this and say, let us stop testing some people that probably may not benefit a lot from it, like the hotel workers who are okay. Let us reserve to the suspects, somebody with the symptoms, and somebody who is in the hospital. But then for the others who are okay out there, wear your mask, sanitize your hands. If you are asymptomatic then and you keep your distance, you will not be able to infect others. But we will not be able to have anytime soon enough testing to do mass or universal testing.
There's the Health Amendment Bill of 2020. What would you like incorporated, and have you perhaps aired your views on the same?
Now, the Health Laws Amendment Bill 2020 is one of the documents that we see as an attack on us as health workers. And I think we have voiced out and said, this is not a time when the government should be fighting its health workers. This is a time when we should come together and first fight COVID, and then if we are going to do some radical changes that they know will not be acceptable to us, then we can come to the table then. We have said that we are rejecting it in total, and we will be lobbying even in parliament so that when it gets there, it doesn't see the light of the day. And why am I saying this? What we have in the health sector and in the regulatory bodies is what we call self-regulation. And for any profession worth its salt worldwide, what we usually do is self-regulation, where a consortium of professionals in that sector who have had enough experience can be able to come together and regulate their peers. And that is how it has been. But if you look at the Health Laws Amendment Bill, it is bringing in amendments to propose that we remove the technical people from the boards and the councils, and then we can bring in lay people, and it will actually become a tool for political rewards. We bring in lay people to be able to regulate a profession that they do not understand about. You can imagine when you are dealing with a disciplinary case, and then when you are talking about the ethics involved, the people who are talking there are not technical people. So to be able to make sound decisions in the regulatory bodies, to be able to have the capacity to be listened to by the technical people in that profession you are regulating, then you must possess the technical know-how of that profession. And that is what they are amending to remove. And that is why we have come out as the health workers and said that it is not time for that, because it is very offensive to us. And we have said, for us, we are not asking for amendment. We are rejecting it in total. If there will be an amendment, let's come to the table. But that must come after COVID is over, so that now we are able to discuss and see where there are shortfalls, and then we can be able to fill. But as the document is now, it's not a document that is in the interest of the health workers or even in the interest of Kenya.
And I'm quite sure if there was a health service commission, things would be a little bit easier. Let's focus now on stigmatization. They are on the front line. They are first line of defense, but also health workers are facing a lot of stigmatization from the community. Perhaps we need to sensitize people more on that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not only health workers, but even the community. Within the community, people are, this disease has actually been stigmatized, but I don't really blame them without also blaming ourselves. Because I think the initial handling of the public health measures by the government may have also contributed to this stigma. Because when you enforce public health measures in a way that enforces with a lot of fear, fear drives out reason. When you drive out reason, the result you usually get is stigma. So number one, we should actually step back and correct one mistake. Stop policing public health measures and use the professionals who have been trained on that, because they went to school for about 4 years to be able to do this. The public health officers, we send them out there to the public, they engage the public so that the public can actually understand this is a disease that we live with. It can be able to get anyone. Actually, anyone you meet today might be infected and be asymptomatic. The only reason they don't know is because they have not been tested. And I agree that there is need to go out there and educate them so that we do not stigmatize each other between the medics and the community and within the community itself. There is a lot of education so that people can understand even the measures. I saw another time in Mombasa, a police was attacked as he was trying to arrest somebody who did not have a mask. And what that tells you is that those people do not see these measures as measures to protect themselves. They see them as a tool used by government probably to take away their rights or something. And that is why they react in that way. And it's because of the way we enforced it. But if we can go back, withdraw the police and bring forth the public health officers who have been trained on this, they will be able to sit with the community and make them understand about this disease, how we are supposed to protect ourselves, how we are supposed to handle somebody who is sick from COVID and who has recovered from COVID, so that they can understand that this is like any other disease, like HIV, and we are treating it the way we treated HIV, and we should have learned better. So that they can understand that this is a disease you can live with, that when somebody wears their mask, they do hand hygiene, they do respiratory hygiene, they wear their mask well and keep their social distance. Actually, even if they are symptomatic, they cannot be able to infect you. And then people will start coming out of this stigma.
Indeed, we have been speaking to Peter Wachira, who is the national chairman of the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers. Of course, we are talking about the welfare of the front line defense on COVID, that is the healthcare workers. But we'll continue with that discussion. But for now, let's head on to the Pan-Afric Hotel, where our reporter is on standby to tell us exactly what is happening there.
That this group might shift towards 2022. So this is the slide. You can have a look. William Ruto is still leading with 30%, followed by Raila Odinga with 17%. Alfred Mutua comes in as number 8. So Alfred Mutua is gaining popularity, in a very interesting way, followed by Musalia Mudavadi. But look at the percentage of undecided Kenyans who were interviewed. We have 16% who are yet to decide, because the governors who are featuring the report, they're yet to show interest on 2022 presidential candidate. So probably this might change. So this is broken down into regions. Now we focus on Coast region. We sampled 366 respondents, and still William Ruto is still taking the lead, followed by Honorable Raila Odinga and Honorable Governor Hassan Ali Joho coming in as 9%. Also something to note is the 19% of undecided Kenyans who were interviewed. Then we go to Northeastern. We sampled a sample of 169 Kenyans. So again, William Ruto is still taking the lead with 33%, followed by Honorable Raila Odinga, and Honorable Gideon Moi coming in as number 3. And we still have 16% of undecided Kenyans. Then we go to Eastern. Eastern, this is a combination of Lower and Upper Eastern. You understand we have Meru, Embu, Isiolo still part of the Eastern. So William Ruto is still taking the lead with 31%, followed by Raila Odinga with 17%, and Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka coming in as number 3. But we still have a very huge percent of 14% of undecided citizens who were interviewed. Central, we interviewed 566 people, and we still have Deputy President William Ruto taking the lead with 29%, followed by Honorable Raila Odinga with 15%. But surprisingly, in Central, we have the huge number of undecided people, which stands at 21%. So I think Central, they're yet to have, probably they don't have the kingpin as we speak. That is why we're seeing the 21% of undecided people in Central. We have Rift Valley. Still, William Ruto is still taking the lead with 32%, followed by Honorable Raila Odinga, Honorable Gideon Moi coming in as number 3 with 9%, and we still have the 14% of undecided Kenyans. Then we have Western region. 423 respondents were interviewed. Still, William Ruto is still taking the lead with 29%, followed by Honorable Raila Odinga with 16%, and a very huge number of undecided people, which stands at 17%. Then, when it's come to Nyanza, I separated Central Nyanza and South Nyanza. Central Nyanza, we analyzed Kisumu, Siaya, and Homa Bay. Still, Raila Odinga, Honorable Raila Odinga is taking the lead with 36%, followed by William Ruto with 23%, Governor Ali Hassan Joho coming in as number 3, and the people who are undecided stands at 8%. Now, look at South Nyanza. This is Kisii, Nyamira, Migori. We have Deputy President taking the lead, and which stands at 28%, followed by Honorable Raila Odinga at 24%, and we have 5% of people who are undecided. Let's go to Nairobi, which is now the last region. As you can see, our Deputy President is still taking the lead with 27%, followed by Honorable Raila Odinga, and we have Governor Alfred Mutua coming in as number 3 with 8%, and Nairobi with Nairobi residents, majority of them, which stands at 17%, they're yet to decide. And something that you need to note, the governors, these questions were open-end. We didn't prompt, so these were the top mentioned. So as we can note, Kenyan, they're looking for change. They're looking to have new leaders and new faces as the president of the country. And we all understand William Ruto is leading because he's one of the people, actually the only person who has expressed the interest to be the president of the country comes 2022. So need for change in 2022 presidential candidature. So there has been a debate on who the next crop of leadership should be composed. Is it between the traditional leaders that we all know or the new faces? But this is important because, you know, the current census shows that youth between the age of 24 and 35, they are unemployed, which is very reflected in our findings. Now, when you look at these statistics, majority of people, which is 62% of the people who are interviewed, they want to see the change in new leaders, or rather new faces, in 2022 presidential elections. And actually, this one is noted in Nairobi. Nairobi stands at 70, and we have Western and Eastern. So it means these regions, they're hungry for change. They're looking forward to have new leaders in this country. Then we posted another question on best working governor. As we realize, the majority of the governors, or rather most of our current governors, are on their last term. So we sought to understand from Kenyans, which of the current governors do they perceive to be the best performing governor? And this is what they had to say. So best working governor, according to the citizens of this country, which was witnessed across the 47 counties, is Machakos Governor Dr. Alfred Mutua. It was cited to be the best performing governor among the 47 counties, followed by Mombasa Governor Hassan Ali Joho. Then we have Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya coming in as number 3. But surprisingly, Kisii Governor is the least performing governor according to the people that we interviewed. Now, we posted another question on re-election of current leaders. Will current leaders be re-elected comes 2022? At just over 50% of the term, many elected officials, they're starting to plan either for the re-election or rather moving to probably another position. And you have gathered the data on how currently the citizens, they feel about them. So we posted a question on the senator, and the question was, if elections were to be held today, would you re-elect your current senator again? Surprisingly, nearly half of the people that were interviewed, which stands at 48% of Kenyans, would re-elect their current senator. But Coast, Western, and Central regions, they have the low likelihood of re-electing their current senators. So these are the regions that they're looking forward to have new faces in the leadership comes 2022. Again, we posted a question on re-election of the current members of parliament, and a majority of 54% of Kenyans who are interviewed would re-elect their current MP, except in the coastal region, where most respondents are to the contrary. So it means Coast, they're looking forward to see new faces comes 2022. And we posted another question again on re-election of current women representative. If elections were held today, would you re-elect your current women representative? And a majority of Kenyans who are interviewed, which stands at 51%, would re-elect their current women representative. You know, except again in Coast region. You've noticed across the regions, Coast, they're yearning for change. This was the last question that we asked the citizens of this country. and it was a support for BBI. As it stands, the BBI initiative appears to be very much alive, and the change in the constitution is likely to be adopted depending on how it is represented to Kenyans and whether it is cures the problem facing the Kenyans currently. So you can look at the analysis, the support for BBI. Nearly half of the Kenyans who are interviewed, which stands at 47% of Kenyans, support the Building Bridges initiative. But there's no big difference between the people who are supporting the BBI and the people who are against BBI, because it still stands at 40, as you can see. But you have regions like Northeastern, which stands at 83% in support of BBI. But Coast seems they're against the BBI. So that is the report we had prepared, and I thank you guys for coming. So I'll pick questions, probably 3-5 questions. Yes, please. Yeah. Yeah. So what was coming out is Honorable Raila Odinga is a man of the people. And we feel Kenyans, they're still looking forward to have Honorable Raila Odinga as of this country. Yes?
My name is David Njoue from TV47.
Yeah.
From what you've said, 62% of the respondents that we talked to won't change matters.
Come back, and that was a live feed from the Pan-Afric Hotel, where the IRS research firm, that is Intel research firm actually is talking about the 2022 politics, both national level and also on the county levels. Points to note is that a huge number of undecided Kenyans, and the best bet to win an election, national election, is via a coalition, and the best governors being Alfred Mutua, and the least performing governor being Kisii governor. Of course, our reporter Kamche Menza is following up on that and will bring us a much comprehensive report. But in case you're joining us, this is Newscheck. I'm Njue. Lensa Odingo is our sign language interpreter for this morning, and we are discussing the welfare of our health workers who are on the front line when it comes to COVID-19. And earlier on, I was speaking to Peter Wachira, who is the Kenya National Chairman of the National Clinical Officers, and we have been talking about some of the things that unions have talked about, and even some of the things that the health ministry has also been talking about. They need to be a synergy, as Wachira says. Wachira, if you can hear me, the president did talk about a lot of things in his last presidential address, which was, of course, also mental health was mentioned. But before we go to the mental health, after reopening, partial reopening of the economy, and of course the lifting of movement cessation, even the Ministry of Health did admit that we are expecting more to register more cases. How can we limit, if not curb, infection spread inter-county? We had seen Nairobi had a partial lockdown, and so did Mombasa and other counties surrounding Mombasa. How can we curb or even limit inter-county infections?
Thank you. I think where we are now, cessation of movement will not actually help much, because we already now have infections within our communities in different counties. I think in almost all counties. I think now we are doing all counties in Kenya. So if you are to limit movement into these counties, you will not actually stop the spread of the infections, because people will still be interacting within the communities, and the cases will keep on going higher. But this was also expected. Even if we were not to lift, would still be getting more cases because you can see still more cases are coming from Nairobi and from Mombasa. You do not close down because you want to bring the virus transmission to a halt completely. That cannot actually happen. You usually lock down or some bit of partial lockdown so that it can give you time as the infections increase slowly. You'll be able to understand the outbreak. You'll be able to put get infected, and then once you are able to do that, then you can be able to open up. A lockdown or a cessation of movement is actually an implication to mean that we have not able to use our masks well, observe our respiratory and hand hygiene, keep our social distancing. From the word go, there was not actually a need for any cessation of movement or a lockdown to be put in place. Right now, if then these public health measures will not be able to work, a cessation of movement cannot work. The only way you can be able to limit, to bring down the attack rate or the rate of transmission of this virus is only if you bring some areas with a high risk, with a high transmission rate to a complete halt, and that is doing a complete lockdown for like 21 days. But then the question is, do we have the capacity as a country to be able to take care in a large scale like that? If maybe we are to lock down Nairobi and Mombasa completely, that's a question maybe that I cannot be able to answer, but that's the only way you can be able to halt. But for now, for me actually, I would not be advising the government to put in cessation of movement into certain counties and to certain regions. I do not think it's going to help because infections are everywhere. People continue interactions even within the cessation lines, and so it will actually continue unchecked. What I would advocate for is what I said. Let us employ more health workers, send them out there to talk with the public. Let the public honor. Let them know that this is not a government problem. It's our problem. It's us to protect ourselves. When they can be able to check each other, when the community can be able to enforce within itself the protective mechanism without being policed, then I can assure you, you do not need a lockdown, you do not need a cessation of movement, that we will be able to check the transmission rate because basically what we are saying, we are not saying that most Kenyans will not get infected. Ultimately, more than 60% of Kenyans will have to get infected. But what we are trying to do is to ensure that they get infected. The number grows slow by slow so that our facilities, which are limited, can be able to accommodate those requiring hospitalization and probably ICU care. Because if everybody was to be infected at the same time, then we'll be overrun. We will not be able to accommodate these people. But for me, I will not actually be advising on cessation of movement at this juncture. I would be advocating for measures to ensure that citizenry take more responsibility and feel that this is their responsibility, and then the county governments can be able to beef up to improve on the infrastructure and the bed capacity and the utilities like oxygen to ensure that they have enough for their people. But I don't think any lockdown will actually help us. Unless it's a complete lockdown, it will not actually be able to help us. If we wanted to bring the virus to a halt and eliminate it completely, we would have closed down when we only had cases in Nairobi and Mombasa at the start. And if we did a 21-day lockdown, as we had advised as the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, I remember we were the first ones to come out and tell the government, please lock down. After stopping flights, lock down Mombasa and Nairobi, and for 21 days. And then you'll have eliminated the virus, then open up so that we can continue with our business. But of course, by then we were called alarmists because probably people would not see what we were seeing by then. For now, I would not advocate for anything unless we are doing a complete lockdown, because anything else will not be able to help us.
And the president also did mention about mental disturbances, depression, people are distressed, people are stressed, and actually tasked his cabinet to look into the issue. Is it as serious as it is right now?
It's very serious within the communities, within the health workers themselves, but I want to thank Equity Bank, which has actually collaborated with our associations and has been able to establish a psychosocial support center for health workers. But it's not only health workers. And even in the community, if you look at the unintended effects of COVID-19, you are seeing a lot of domestic violence, you are seeing a lot of suicide, homicide, you are seeing rise in crime levels, and all this, a mental health specialist will tell you, is an indicator of the level of anxiety and stress that has actually encompassed our society. And this is because some people, of course, have lost their livelihoods, they have lost their jobs. Some who are depending on those, then they have lost the same. Some of them, they have pre-existing conditions. They are not actually even able to get their medication. And that is why we have been calling for home-based care for the vulnerable and ensuring that we deliver free medicines to them at their own door so that they do not have to come out. So mental health issues in the context of the outbreak, especially with the economic challenges that usually come with it, and especially for health workers because of the environment that we are working in. Every health worker, including myself, at one point or another, we get anxious about the environment we are in. Sometimes you see, like I know of my colleagues in Nairobi, whose colleague has actually died of COVID-19. And when that happens, of course, there are so many questions you ask yourself. There's a lot of anxiety. And of course, there is always that question, will I be the next? And that means then there is need to ensure that there is continuous psychosocial support, not only for medics, but also for everybody within the community, because this is a challenge that is being suffered across the board.
And as we pick up the pace, I also remember the president also did mention that every Kenyan should be responsible. We have heard about home care. A lot of people don't know exactly what is supposed to be done when somebody has COVID-19 and has to be cared for at home. 500 were released yesterday who are on home care. Kindly, in 1 minute, explain how home care works, and are you disturbed with the number of Kenyans flouting the COVID-19 regulations, including leaders?
Yeah, let me start with home-based care. Home-based care is a welcome strategy and policy. And we have actually been in the front line also advocating for the same as the warriors, because we were saying you actually don't need to take somebody who is asymptomatic and take them to a medical facility. They're actually utilizing resources for no good reason, because this person is asymptomatic and they can be able to quarantine at home as long as you educate them well, you give them enough support to ensure that they protect themselves and they protect the people they are living with. For you to be admitted for home-based care, there is an eligibility criteria. You must not belong to the vulnerable group, and that is the age above 60 or above 58 in Kenya, as the president put it. You must not have a pre-existing condition. And in the pre-existing condition, I must add that obesity is also one of them, because most people do not consider it as a pre-existing condition or as a health condition. And we have actually seen statistics like from South Africa, where the leading cause of death in those with pre-existing conditions, obesity ranked actually higher than even diabetes. So that eligibility criteria is looked at, and then you must not have symptoms, or if you have symptoms, they must be very mild for you to be admitted into the home-based isolation care. Once then you are eligible, then you have to identify a caregiver from your own household. This is the person who will be giving you food, washing your clothes, and assisting you as you continue with your home-based care in your own room. You must be able to have a room. Probably, if you can have a separate washroom, the better. But if you don't have it shared, you can still use it, but it has to be disinfected after every use by your caregiver and yourself, if then you are stable enough. And then, within 14 days that you'll be there, there is a Jitenge app. In a Jitenge app, it will prompt you every 7 in the morning so that you can be able to send them your temperature. So you can tell them today my temperature was normal, was 36 points or something. If then you do not respond, every 2 hours is going to prompt you until 1 o'clock. If by then you will not have answered, they will then contact a healthcare provider who will be looking after you, because they are healthcare workers who have been assigned to certain homes. And then they can either come and visit, or they can call the volunteer, the community health volunteer who is near you, to come and check on you so that they can see if it's actually that you have flouted and moved out of the house, or probably you may have worsened. And then they can be able to look at this. And then how do you come out of home-based care? After 14 days, if you don't actually have any symptoms, you have not developed any symptoms, you can actually come out of home-based isolation care without even having to take up a test.
Okay.
If you had some mild symptoms and they have cleared after 14 days,
Yes.
you can also do the same.
Okay.
But if you can be able to access a test,
Yes.
it's the best, that you do a test and then it's negative, and you can be able to come out of it. You asked about
Wachira.
the people flouting. Yes.
Hello, Ashira. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but indeed, thank you so much for your insight and your time. We have been speaking to Peterson Wachira, who is the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers National Chairman. Of course, he wears a lot of hats when it comes to the health worker sector. And of course, remember to sanitize, remember to keep safe, keep clean, keep the distance. And I always say, keep the faith, we will trounce this. And of course, on behalf of everyone who has made Newscheck a success, thank you so much. My name is Bentro Njue. Lensa Odingo has been our sign language interpreter, and now I'm paving way for Gladys Mungai with Tamrini. Thank you so much for watching. Let's continue this conversation online.